Annyeonghaseyo. Welcome to Afternoona Delight. We're Leah, Megan, and Amy, three American romance novelists discussing all things K-romance from a writer's lens. We fangirl over our favorite actors and actresses, talk up our trope addictions, and nerd out on K-drama deep dives. We'll throw in a few K-pop and K-skincare recs for good measure, because why not ride the Hallyu wave all the way to shore? So grab some tteokbokki and listen to your new favorite unis.
Annyeong.
Annyeong.
Hi, everybody.
So how was your week?
Whew, I feel like, so I live in California and we've been in this spell where it just like never rains ever, which is terrible for fires and drought. And we are starting to get that first bit of winter bluster. So we went to the beach yesterday and collected driftwood, and it's raining outside right now. So I'm feeling some winter vibes.
You know, it's really funny because I had a writer friend on Twitter that she said something like, you always know when it's raining in Los Angeles because everyone always talks about it. And I said, I know, I live on the East Coast, okay? But yet I always know when it's raining in LA, in California, because every single person who lives out there takes pictures of the rain as if it's like this. They're like, oh my God, it's Bigfoot. I don't know. It just always makes me laugh.
Well, I will say, having grown up in the Midwest and lived places where there is weather, living here is a lot like Groundhog's Day, where sometimes I'll be like outside, like, what is weird right now? And then I'm like, oh, it's a cloud. Because like sometimes, like a lot of times it's just like perfect blue skies literally every single day. I mean, we have fog, but once the fog burns away, it really just gets kind of repetitively perfect.
And Amy's in the Midwest, like, I don't want to hear it.
Like, that sounds really rough. We're supposed to get 6 to 9 inches of snow tomorrow. So,
and
of course, that is the one day in like recent pandemic history that I have to leave my house and go somewhere and drive in it. So, not looking forward to it.
Yeah, That's one of my biggest things I don't miss about Four Seasons is basically just snow driving. It's pretty to look at, but
we're supposed to get a wintry mix as well tomorrow. Oof. And I don't think I'm going to go anywhere. I don't know. Well, my son has a dentist appointment and I had told my husband to take him. I was like, you can take him, right?
I have a dentist appointment. Like, why? Why do we have those? And I'm sure our like 7 listeners out there are just loving hearing about my dentist appointment tomorrow. So.
I know.
Well, going to the dentist for me, being like a Catholic, it's like going to confession. I feel like I show up and I feel cleansed and purged, and so
I love it when I leave. I do love my cleaning when I leave, but like when I get there, I also feel like I have. Maybe it's a Jewish thing too. I have like intense shame where they're going to be like, your flossing sucks. Like, who taught you how to floss? Every 6 months, it's like, who taught you how to floss? So.
No, it's funny because I forget who I was talking to. So in elementary school, we had this woman who would always come in and talk to us about brushing our teeth. And she always called the toothbrush Mr. Tickler. And she would come in and she'd be like, Mr. Tickler is your best friend. And I'm looking back and I'm like, who let this woman come in and talk about Mr. Tickler to elementary school kids?
Mr. Tickler truly is your best friend.
That could be the name of your next romance novel, just saying.
Right.
Mr. Tickler.
Oh my God, the alien tickler?
You can have 4 ticklers.
Cooped up with my alien tickler. That would be
All right, well, who is ready for the second installment of our Crash Landing on You deep dive?
Me. I've been waiting for this. I can't wait to talk about this topic.
Same. So last episode, we explored why Captain Ri is the perfect example of an alpha hero done right, and how Yoon Se-ri is an alpha heroine in her own right, despite the fact that she does appear at first sort of like a damsel in distress. She's very much a boss, literally and figuratively. So today, we're going to take a closer look at the supporting characters, those who offer comic relief and poignancy, as well as some dried Pollock and beer to our star-crossed leads. There's the North Korean soldiers who bravely follow their captain all the way into the heart of evil capitalism, aka Seoul, and the busybody village ajummas who eventually accept Se-ri into their crew, even though they think she's probably a spy. So please note that this episode does contain spoilers. If you haven't watched Crash Landing on You and you don't want to know the big plot points, proceed with caution. But first, let's start by talking about the second romantic leads, which are another pair of North and South Korean star-crossed lovers. We have Seo Dan, played by Seo Ji-hye, who's Captain Ri's arranged fiance, a Pyongyang socialite who happens to be the only niece of a politically powerful general. And then there is the South Korean business person and con artist, Gu Seong-Joon, played by Kim Jun-Hyun, who has a vendetta against the Yoon family for reasons and tried worming his way into the group first by dating Seri. But when she sees right through him, he chooses her overconfident brother and swindles him out of a large sum of money, which is how he ends up on the run hiding out in North Korea.
Okay, so the first topic is about Seo Dan in Defense of an Unlikable Woman. So as the second female lead, Seo Dan is basically meant to do two things in the plot: pine for the male lead and present a bitchy foil to the lovable female lead. However, while Seo Dan isn't exactly a warm basket of baby kittens, she has a regality and earnestness about her that is sympathetic and appealing. Please note that our discussion will contain spoilers of this character. In a flashback to Switzerland, we see Yoon Seri make a comment about Seo Dan saying, quote, "He could do so much better." So do we agree, disagree, and why?
For me and this, I suppose I come out mixed on this. Like, I agree he could do so much better because I think he could find somebody who loves him for his authentic self. However, I also disagree. I have a problem with this line a little bit because I think for so much of the series, I really like Seo Dan, and I think that they really keep her as not getting into these like quote unquote bitchy cat fights with the female lead. But I felt like in this case, there was a little bit of slippage in that, and that they kind of tried to create some sort of like pitting where, like, you know, we have the main character saying something kind of like uncharitable about the second female lead, not knowing much of anything, but just to kind of let the audience know, like, ew, we don't like her. So I don't know. I think that, yeah, I've got mixed feelings about this statement just because, yes, obviously they weren't meant to be, but I felt like it was one of the only times the show kind of like devolved into a little bit of cattiness.
Yeah, I mean, I found this really interesting because I feel like when Seo Dan was first presented, I to a degree, I was kind of like, oh no, is this going to turn into like kind of an other woman plot line where she's just nasty? She's just the nasty foil to make the main lead look like an angel. So I was really happy that, as we'll talk later, that doesn't happen. So I do have thoughts about Seri saying he could do so much better. And part of me wonders if when she saw, because she comments when they're standing next to each other. And he's Jung-hyuk at that time. He's not Captain Ri yet. He is just kind of standing there enjoying the scenery and taking pictures, and Seo Dan is like very focused on him, but there's a very distinct lack of chemistry. And so I think at the time, I wonder if Seri, that was just a knee-jerk reaction to a woman standing next to a handsome man who she thought she would never have. Because at the time, as we learned, Seri was going through a lot during that time. I mean, she was having a mental health crisis during that time. And I really think that part of her was thinking, you know, I'll never have a man like that. And I think maybe that was her reaction. And maybe she was projecting a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of want to piggyback on that idea that at that very moment in time, Suri is literally about to jump off the bridge. And he swoops in and he notices that something is wrong. She's kneeling, she's talking to herself. He notices that something's wrong. And that is why he goes and asks her to take the picture. And that's what I think is so poignant about the scene, is that we see her having this sort of emotional crisis, and he steps in and saves her from it. And I think he knows that he's saving her from something. He knows that something is going on. And for me, that was that sort of immediate connection between them, even though they were strangers. And so when she says he could do so much better, to me, that spoke to the fact that here they are, two strangers, and they already have this sort of kinship that is going to continue to grow. And we know, because we know them in the present as well, that this is part of their past. And again, going back to what, I'm not sure which one of you was saying it, but that Jung-hyuk is taking pictures of Switzerland and Dan is doing nothing but looking at him. And so we definitely see that disconnect between them, that she came there to see him. He doesn't even remember her when he first sees her because it's been 7 years or something like that. And yeah, so I didn't take it as being catty from Suri, but I did take it, yes, as the writers trying to sort of pit them against each other. And I'm glad that it didn't go any further than that.
Yeah, I agree. And, I've always kind of thought that maybe that comment was less about Dan and more about Suri kind of projecting her own self-confidence issues at that time. But that just leads into what we were talking about before, that there was this fate, that we learn later, which I think is so cool and prevalent in K-dramas. What is something that you appreciated about Seo Dan?
So I think she could have been inserted into the plot simply to foil the romance of the leads, and she wasn't. I love that she wasn't just there to try and break up Suri and Jang-hook, but that she had her own arc and that she was able to grow as a character and be somebody totally different at the end of the show than she was at the beginning of the drama. And I totally appreciated that. She could have been a very flat character. She could have been very one-dimensional. And I think that they gave her sort of a full circle to grow. And I really enjoyed that. And yes, in the beginning, when she first entered the show, I had the same reaction of, oh no, like, what are we going to do with this? And by the end, I was rooting for her. And I think that that speaks to a really well-written character and well executed by the actress as well.
I think something that I appreciated about Seo Dan is she probably has one of the best RBFs I've ever seen. So resting bitch face. I loved it. It was just something about her like icy cool gaze really warmed my heart. I just really appreciated that she never felt like she had to be like this sweetly nice, likable person. And, she is a little bit prickly, and that's okay. And I think that even though she can be outwardly prickly when she wants to be, and she doesn't feel like she has to be overly kind or impress others, like we see her interacting with so-called friends in North Korea who are all pretty backstabby and unkind. And she can kind of just like navigate that with some of her armor. But I also really liked it that she could be really warm in unexpected ways too. Like when Seung-Joon gets sick and she makes him the porridge, that was all like really sweet, I felt like, and kind of like a beginning of a turning point for them. And I felt like her revealing that while she very much can be like, she's not the spunkiest, perkiest, happiest person on the block, right? But that doesn't mean that she doesn't have depth and a capacity to love. And I know a lot of people like that in my life. And I always really appreciate those people as well. Like, I feel like what you see is what you get a lot of the time.
I love Dan. I mean, I just need to say that she was honestly one of my favorite characters in the entire show. I was rooting for her. As soon as the show started to give her a little bit more depth, I was all in for her storyline. I was really excited to see where the show took her, and I wasn't disappointed. Probably one of my favorite characteristics about her was sort of can be a common characteristic of a cold character, is that once she did warm up to certain characters, she was all in and she was very loyal. And that is one thing I think she was even really loyal. She was loyal to her mom, and she was also really loyal to Captain Ri, even when she knew that she was engaged to him. So she stayed loyal to him for the 10 years that they were, engaged from a distance.
10 years.
Yeah, right. That's right. 10 years, right? That's how long they were engaged?
Yeah. Amazing.
Okay. So I love that. And I do feel like she did a lot in order to make her mom happy. And not that she was doing it from a kind way. I really think she knew her mom, who was a widow, was very concerned about Dan's future. She just wanted Dan to be happy. And so Dan, I think, wanted to be happy, because she wanted to assure her mom that she was going to be okay. And to a degree, I think Dan was a little bit in denial, like, I can be happy with Captain Ri. I really can. And it wasn't until she realized that wasn't going to happen that she found an alternative way to be happy. But I felt like once she warmed up to Seung-Joon, she was all in. And the fact that I had to tell you, after he died and she said all she wanted was revenge with this RBF resting bitch face on, be still my heart. I loved her. I wanted to marry her then. I thought she was fantastic, because she's like, yeah, I was like cheering for her. So I just really loved how they humanized her, the story arc they gave her, and the fact that she was kind of this cold woman that had a lot of depth. I just thought she was fantastic.
Yeah, total marriage material. Like, that is somebody that you would want to have in your corner no matter what.
Right? I mean, she is like the ultimate, like, wingman, or not wingman. What's the word I want to say?
Ride or die.
Yes, she is the ultimate ride or die. Absolutely. And So I think that was just one of my favorite things about her. I just felt like if I got her to like me, well, actually, I kind of have a best friend who's like that. A lot of people think she's like, she can be kind of cold, she can be exact, but man, she is loyal to me and I'm loyal to her. And so maybe that's it. Maybe I saw a little bit of my best friend in Dan. I don't know. So in honor of our badass bitch queen, Seo Dan, we are going to recommend some romance novels that feature other badass bitch queens.
Of course, I'm going to recommend a YA book because that's what I do. And it's one that I actually read over the summer that I think fits in great. And it's called If I'm Being Honest by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca. It's a YA romance that is a retelling of Taming of the Shrew. And the main character, Cameron, has a crush on this guy. And she gets her chance at a school function to make her move with this guy. But when she's alone with him, somebody else bursts into the room that they're in. And it's another girl from school who's crying about something. And Cameron basically lays her out with words. Like, she's horrible, to the extent where the guy she's crushing on flat out calls her a bitch. And she decides that she needs to change. She needs to tame herself. They're reading Taming of the Shrew in class. She needs to tame herself and become a different person. And throughout the book, she learns a lot about herself. She learns a lot about how she projects herself to others. But what I really liked is that she decided at the end, okay, I can be nicer and I can get to know people better and care about them more, but I don't want to be tamed. If you don't like me for me, then we're not right. And of course, she doesn't end up with the same person that she liked at the beginning of the book. So it is some great growth. And she goes into this idea of taming herself, but then realizes that she shouldn't have to change. She can be nice. She could be nicer, but she shouldn't have to change exactly who she is to get somebody else to love her. And she learns that through somebody else falling for her instead.
Oh, I love that. I want to read it now.
It's really good. It's really good.
I've read it and I love it. So that was a great choice. For me, I thought I couldn't think of a better badass bitch queen than Nora Sutherland, who is the heroine of the original Sinners series by Tiffany Reese. And you can start that series with The Siren. And so I realized I think it was last time or the time before, maybe our debut episode, I had recommended Beach Read, which was a book about writing. And The Siren is very much a book about writing as well. So Nora Sutherland is a famous erotic writer, and she has finally written a book that feels very personal to her. And like a very demanding, uptight British editor has the book, and basically they have 6 weeks to whip this into shape. And as the book process goes, there's a lot of like highly charged sexual content. It comes out that she's a dominatrix into the BDSM scene, but she also is a submissive to one of my favorite fictional heroes of all time, the priest, Father Soren. And so, yeah, it's definitely not a book for the faint-hearted, and the series is not for the faint-hearted, but I do think there's a lot of emotional growth and a heroine who very much is her own person and stays true to herself.
So that book actually has one of my favorite lines of all time. One of the characters says, "Don't write what you know, write what you want to know." And I think about that, I think every single time I write. I just love that line so much. So that's a good recommendation in my opinion. So the book I'm going to recommend is Rock Chick Regret by Kristen Ashley. This book starts with the most unlikable heroine I think I've ever read. She's even in the blurb described as an ice princess. And I always love when there's a character I just love when they get into the backstory of why a character can be so cold. And I mean, one of the biggest reasons is that she grew up with a drug lord father. She's always been surrounded by snakes, basically, not real snakes, but you know what I mean. And she's always kind of had to be very cautious of what she says. And the hero actually is an undercover cop that she doesn't know it at the time, but he's obviously he's undercover, but he's working to take her father down. And she's very, very cold to him, but she's drawn to him, but she's very cold to him because she knows it can't work. She can't have a relationship with, at the time, one of her father's underlings. But when her father is brought down, she's basically left alone and she is attacked. And when she does, the only person she can think to go to is the hero, who is a cop, and now she knows he's a cop. And she goes to him because she doesn't really have anyone else. She's been left all alone. Then there's this whole growth as she recovers physically, that she kind of learns how to trust other people, because she's never really been around people that love her. And she kind of has to learn how to love. And she almost has this like childlike innocence in a way, because she's almost like relearning everything, like emotions and everything. And I just really love it. And the heroine has always stuck with me through other books I've read.
And now it's time for our favorite segment, our K recommendation of the week.
And this week, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite places to get K-drama merch, which is the Hallyu Magic Shop on Etsy. All you have to do is Google Hallyu Magic Shop, Hallyu Magic Shop, and that'll be the first link that pops up. As soon as I finished watching Crash Landing on You, Chloe, I needed some Chloe merch, and particularly mugs, because I am a collector of kitschy mugs. I don't really care about the mugs that go with my dishes. I don't use those ever. You can have them if you want them, but I love collecting mugs. And so I found Hallyu Magic Shop and ordered 2 Crash Landing on You mugs. We'll show pictures on Instagram. And not only did I get my amazing mugs, but I also got some freebies. I'm wearing right now my Hallyu Magic Shop bracelet that says, if it's not Korean, I don't want your drama, which is totally relatable. In addition to that, I also got a mini Polaroid of all of Captain Ri's North Korean men when they first show up in South Korea, with Kim Soo-hyun in his cameo as green tracksuit guy. And that is on my refrigerator right now, and my kids think it's hysterical. But Hallyu Magic Shop on Etsy for all of your K-drama needs. Highly recommend.
And just a reminder, we do post all of our K recommendations on Instagram. Go to @Afternoona Delight Podcast, follow us, and you will be able to get all the behind the scenes outtakes for the show. You'll be able to get recommendations, and you'll also get to see reviews for different K-dramas that we're currently watching. So make sure to do that and to hit that subscribe button.
Okay, Gu Seong-Joon. Please note again, this entire section is going to be filled with spoilers on this character and on the show itself, but you wouldn't be here if you didn't already love Crash Landing on You, so we are going to proceed. Fun fact, the actor who plays Gu Seong-Joon didn't know that he was going to die in the drama. I read an interview where when he got to the end of episode 15, he asked the director if he was going to die, and the director said, probably not. His relationship has only just started with Dan. Crash Landing on You was a live shoot production as opposed to a pre-produced drama like Descendants of the Sun. This means it was also being written as it went, and that often the development of the drama can be tailored in response to audience reviews for better or for worse. Live shoot versus pre-produced shows warrant an entire episode, in my opinion, but it was fascinating to see the story, as well plotted as Chloe, was being written while it was up and going. So here's our question. Were you satisfied with Gu Seong-Joon's fate in line with Chloe's overall conclusion? Why or why not?
I thought a lot about this in regards to, let's say, like American movies and American dramas. And so many of our shows kill women to further a man's plotline or character arc. I mean, I can name a whole bunch that do that. And it's always something that I love those movies, but that's always one thing that really bugged me. Like, why do we always have to kill the woman to further the man's, plot line? So I love that this show didn't do that. So additionally, I found this to be unique because his death didn't only further Dan's plot line. It really gave his plot a conclusion that didn't necessarily just have to do with death. A big part of his storyline was that he didn't think anyone would cry for him when he died. He didn't really have his parents anymore. His parents had both passed. He didn't really have friends. He'd, spent much of his adult life just working to exact revenge on Yoon Suri's family. So he didn't really have anyone. And that was a big part of his storyline, was he didn't think anyone would care when he died. And so the fact that he died and Dan mourned him greatly, I felt like that was just such an interesting way that how his death in a way furthered his character arc. It was just really interesting. And I love that because of his death, Dan found her confidence. She found confidence in herself and her singledom because of the way Seung-Joon loved her, because it was just such a pure way. I mean, he really loved her for her. And I'm not sure she realized that could happen to her.
I have mixed feelings. I really don't like when my faves die on shows, even if it like fits into the arc of the character. So no, I didn't want him to die, and I wasn't expecting him to die, and I didn't really think he was dead and that he was dead. And I was like, man. But then also I was like, oh yeah, this is like another North and South Korean romance. And obviously there's many reasons why this isn't going to work out super well. Like Dan's not going to leave her mom and her uncle behind like in the regime, and he's basically like hiding out and like a wanted person. So as a writer, I could see like there's not many places to take this relationship, but I did really wish I could sprinkle magic fairy dust on it and keep them alive.
I love that you mentioned that you didn't think he would really be dead. And I was the exact same way, because how many times did we think that Jung-hyuk was dead and that Suri was dead, and they weren't dead? And then he was really dead and there was no coming back from it. And I sobbed. I sobbed for this character that I didn't even think that I cared about when I first started watching the show. And then I sobbed for him and I sobbed for Dan. And I do think that there really was no other way to end their story with them both knowing that they were loved, kind of thing, because he could have left. He was at the airport. He could have left and he could have been free per se. He would have been on the run until probably the end of time, because Suri's brother was never going to give up on finding him and punishing him for the money that he stole. So he would have been on the run forever. And instead he goes back and he does something selfless, and he goes back for her knowing that that's the end of the road for him. He wasn't going to make his flight. There was no way after that. I don't know if he planned on dying. I think he knew that that was a risk, but I also don't know, had he lived, what, like you said, Leah, what would they do? There's no way to neatly tie up that story without him dying. So he died knowing that he was loved, and Dan knew that she was loved and knew what it was like to be loved, and no longer wanted to settle for the arrangement with Captain Reed. And so I think it brought both of their stories full circle. And I appreciated that, even though I was ugly crying while it happened.
I completely agree. And I feel like you said that. You said my thoughts so much better than I could formulate, because I just completely agree. And I will say, the way he died, it gave him a chance to be a really cool hero. Like, I have to admit,
that scene was badass.
That really scene was so badass. He's got this like, pump shotgun, like, like, I mean, I loved it. I loved it. Because again, I love everything over the top. That's always my favorite. So when he came in and there's like 10 guys who can't seem to hit him, but he can hit everyone with the shotgun. Although they do foreshadow that, which again, that's a whole nother episode. We can talk about foreshadowing in K-dramas. They do foreshadow that he's a good shot. They show him early. And I remember thinking, why are they showing him shooting clay? Yeah. Why are they showing this? And then I'm like, oh, okay. So that at least helped, because I was kind of like, yeah, how is he that good of a shot with a shotgun? Like, those things, I've never shot a gun, but I'm pretty sure it's kind of hard to hit. Anyway.
I was going to say, I thought it was epic from the airport on. Like, he's on the phone. He hears that they have her. He tears up his ticket and gets in the car and goes. And yeah, then busts into that warehouse with the shotgun. And that was just, it was epic. Not that I, want to see anybody in a shootout, but if I have to, I want it to be a romantic shootout.
Right.
If Oppa's going out, you want the mic drop.
Yeah, exactly.
Oppa out.
And, and the thing is, he died knowing she was crying for him. Like, he died knowing someone is going to cry for him. And that was everything. That was kind of, you know what I mean? So I loved it. I did. I mean, trust me, I bawled my eyes out, and I didn't want it to happen. And I kept expecting him to pop up, and then he didn't, but it all still felt okay, because Dan had this inner strength that she mourned him, she got revenge, and then she turned into this like super bad, like she was even more badass in like at the very end. I would watch another whole season of her.
Yeah. Like when she puts the shades on and just does that like walk off. It kind of reminded me of the end of Mad Men too, when you see like Peggy. I don't know if any of you watch Mad Men, but like Peggy at the end with her sunglasses, like holding the crazy octopus painting and a cigarette out of her mouth. And it was just the same thing of like, character kind of coming into her power. I guess you put on shades when you come into your power. And
you do.
Yeah.
I love that, coming into her power. That's such a good way to put it. I love that.
So something else that I wanted to talk about was how the show it allowed all of the characters to kind of exhibit a sense of real humanity. And so I would kind of expect that for like South Korea, but like I was really touched by how it extended that into North Korea and saw it a bit as a repudiation of othering enemies, othering being that phenomenon where, a group will attribute negative characteristics to people or groups that are different than them, that us versus them way of thinking. And basically that process boils down to looking at others and saying they're not like me or they're not one of us. And, we see the show kind of do that and then reconcile it and go from othering to humanizing. And I don't think that they did it in a way that it excused the North Korean regime or sugarcoated the fact that it is like a repressive state and there's multiple human rights abuses. But I felt like it really leaned in hard on the fact that it's very much also a place where average citizens are trying to just live their lives. And that when we see in the show, relationships are established, trust is built, true connections are created. And that's not just happening between the romantic leads or the second romantic leads, but also the ensemble cast. And I also really enjoyed that there's a nod to the fact that North Korea or South Korea, there is still a shared understanding and culture and friendship that's alive, despite the fact that the two nations are still technically in an active state of war. And so while there isn't like a strong, overt political push towards reunification, I felt like it really addressed the human cost of this ongoing conflict. So that was like my thinkiness there. And given that this was our gateway K-drama, what's one way that Crash Landing on You surprised or made you curious about any aspects of North or South Korea in relation to the geopolitical divide on their peninsula?
What I find interesting is that I do think American media's view of North Korea is basically like, look what happened to Otto Warmbier. You know what I mean? And while that obviously is a tragedy, I do feel like our media doesn't in any way humanize just the people who just live there and are trying to live their lives. And YouTube's a great resource in that respect because there are a lot of North Korean defectors who are posting their stories. And they're posting them in a way where they're explaining what happened or how they defected, but they're also talking about just their dreams now that they don't live there anymore. And it really humanizes the people that are there as opposed to as well as the people who defected. And I really felt strongly about wanting to, in my mind, humanize those people. And it was really nice to be able to have that opportunity. And, I actively sought out interviews from North Koreans after that.
Yeah, just like you, I was Googling as I was watching because I wanted to know, is this an accurate portrayal? Like, how much did they know? And they, and from what I read, they did the best that they could with, like what you're saying, Megan, like with stories from defectors and stuff like that. And I liked going back to that humanization aspect of it, that it's not just the regime over there, but it's everybody else who lives under that regime. They're not the enemy. That's just their life. And so what I loved about getting to know Captain Rhee's men and getting to know the ajummas in the military village was that it humanized as much as it could, right? Because that's not obviously the whole country, but it humanized the people who are there who have no intention of leaving. Even Captain Rhee's men who came to Seoul to help bring him home, they loved their time in Seoul. All of the sauna scenes were some of my favorites, them at the restaurants and all the different things they do, playing video games and stuff like that. But still, when it came time for them to go back to North Korea, none of them tried to defect. And it's also this loyalty going on, I think, as well. Loyalty to their country. That's the only country they've ever known. And loyalty to the people in it as well. Like they knew that they owed it to Captain Rhee to go home. They knew that they owed it to Suri to go home because that would keep her safe. Yeah, I do think it was just super, super humanizing for me to fall for all these people who are in this country that I have no access to. And to see that the drama itself, which is a South Korean drama, doing that humanization aspect of it and not trying to other, but instead trying to unify instead.
For me, I really appreciate when you can see a country reflect on itself. That gives me so much more insight in many ways to what's really happening as opposed to just reading like headlines or news. I feel like seeing how cultures tell their own stories really does kind of give you a more accurate humanizing view of the reality on the ground. And so I'm not saying that like I'm getting my news from Crash Landing on You. I guess I'm trying to say that I felt though that yes, it did try to wrestle really, I thought, well, between the fact that they are a country still divided and how much pain, like when we see the abandoned house and they reflect on the people who live there in the DMZ. I felt like there were lots of moments like that just touched on that pain and loss. Up until the end of World War II, it was one country. And North Korea is such a complicated country. And for the US, how we view it, it's either a spoof on South Park making fun of, the leadership, or it's the news being like, especially if you live in the West Coast like me, like, oh, like, are we going to see a nuclear bomb come from North Korea? And so I just appreciated a lot, thinking about North Korea, not just as either a joke or a country that like could trigger the end of the world essentially, and more of a place that, where real people are existing. And it made me just a lot more interested to learn about the Korean War as well, because I feel like that is a war that happened not long ago. And as much as it obviously is like still very real for people living in that place, like for the Americans who came and fought in it, and like, obviously like we're a big part of like making that war happen. It's very much a forgotten war sandwiched between World War II and Vietnam. And so I appreciated getting a chance to learn a little bit more about our involvement and everything that led up to that war happening. So who is one ensemble character in the show that you'd want to hang out with, and why?
So I said that what I really want to do is I want to eat clams with the soldiers, because that was one of my favorite scenes. I really, really loved when they're all standing around. And again, at the time, Suri's like still trying to play the role of like picky princess. Like she's like, I only eat, but there's a certain seafood that she will only eat. And she didn't really want to eat these clams. And they convinced her to, and she loved it. And then they were like, yo, you got to pour, I think it was soju in the clamshell. And she's like, no, I only eat my shellfish with, and it was like a wine, I think. Mm-hmm. And they're like, no, you got to eat this. And so she like pours it in, and then she loves it. And the whole camaraderie of that scene was just so fun. Like, I just want to stand around a fire and
I would join you. That would be awesome. For mine, I put that I want to have drinks with Nawal Suk, played by Kim Sun-young, who I also just saw in Her Private Life and is such a different character, which just made me love her so much more in her range of acting. But in Crash Landing on You, she is a fantastic drunk because she tells all the secrets and all the gossip. And so I just want to have drinks with her and have her tell me all the secrets.
She was so funny. I really love that.
That's the chairman, right? The chairman of the village.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Chairman, yeah.
Yeah. I loved her. For me, it was soldier Kim Ju-muk, the North Korean soldier who secretly binge watches K-dramas, of course. And right from the beginning, I loved like when you see like Seri is like crash landed into North Korea and she's getting chased by Captain Ri and the other soldiers. And as she's like running by the guard tower, you just see him like sitting there and he's like not looking out the window at what's happening outside at all. He's just sitting there staring at the computer, just like sobbing. And I was like, you know what? At this point, like I saw that in my rewatch. I'm like, I feel you. That would be me. And I would love to sit and just like watch shows with him. He was so pure. And I really loved that Seri had that moment in Seoul with him where she set him up to meet Choi Ji-woo, the South Korean actress. And he was able to just like completely melt into that fanboy moment. It was so precious. Also, I guess staying on this ensemble theme, what's an ensemble focused scene that stuck with you the most since finishing the show and why?
So I'm always a sucker for female friendships and female camaraderie. And I really love how towards the end, all the women from the village stuck up for Man Bok's wife when the villain Chol Cheol-gang's crew posed as soldiers or national security. They told her, you need to come with us. Your husband was in an accident, which was a total lie. They just wanted to essentially use her to get Man Bok to do their bidding. They tried to take her and their son, and the women of the village were really smart, and they were able to figure out that these soldiers were not who they said they were. And they chased them away. And they said, you're not taking anyone from our village. Like, we protect our own. And because of that, they probably saved her life and her son's. And it's just, that scene stuck with me. I mean, I cried really hard at that scene because, again, any type of, especially where they live in North Korea, and the fact, you know, how many rights, you know, women have, the fact that they were like, we're just going to stick up for each other no matter what. And I loved it so much.
That was a really powerful scene. I loved that one. And I loved all of them. My favorite scene was after Suri was already gone and back in South Korea and recovered from her gunshot wound and recovered from sepsis from her gunshot wound. Because it's not over until it's over. This is right towards the end. And it is when Dan's mom comes back to the village, because this is now Dan and Captain Ri are done. Like we're really towards the end here. And Dan's mom comes to the village to bring them products from Suri's Choice that Suri has branded with their pictures on it. And I thought that was just so touching. So these jars of skin cream, and on every box was a different one of their, not an actual photo, but like a drawing, their likeness. And it was beautiful. And they were so touched that Suri still remembered them after going home. And it just shows that connection, even though there is an actual physical divide as far as seeing each other, that connection wasn't broken.
I cried at that scene. It was, I think, well, that whole episode, I think I was just crying on and off, but yeah, I cried. I thought that was a really touching moment.
A scene that really stuck with me was in the chicken shop in South Korea when the North Korean soldiers are with Captain Ri and Suri, and there's a little bit of bickering happening between the soldiers and Suri. And then all of a sudden, the soccer game comes on between Korea and Japan. And again, it was just like that nice, subtle nod to unity and solidarity between like the North and South Korea, and that, you know, they may be enemies, but they together can come together to hate on Japan. And that really felt like a nice, like, dunking moment, basically, where it's like, you know, Japan put Korea through an awful lot. And so, yeah, I appreciated like that moment where, you know, they both turned from like arguing to each other to like cheering together collectively to win the game.
That was a really cool moment. I love that a lot too. It was like it's just very heartwarming. It was really cool to see them all. And the fact that Suri was having such a great time too. And that was, I think, and she'd like never really been that type of person when she was in South Korea.
On a less serious note, but still incredibly important, to the point that I think we need to do like a whole show on this at some point. What was one of the biggest food cravings you had watching this show?
I mean, we live in America. It's not like I can't get fried chicken, you know, but I specifically want that South Korean fried chicken. I mean, they eat it, they ate it all the time. And every time they bit into it, it looked so juicy and so crispy. I mean, they made it look so good. Like, it's just that when I was watching Goblin, they kept eating at Subway and they made it look good. And I'm like, no offense to Subway, or maybe should I say like Slubway? But I don't want to eat a Slubway.
Yeah, we don't want Slubway coming for us. So.
I want Slubway coming for us, but I don't know. They don't make Slubway look that good to me because I can.
I think that Frub Frey was also in Crash Landing on You, though, because I had the same experience in watching that too, where I'm like, it looks so delicious. Like, whoever's doing the product placement for that company, like, right. Chef's kiss to you, because I don't know what happened, but in watching that, I was like, oh my God, I need to go get the
products don't look that way here.
Slubway sandwich.
Yeah, no, when the North Korean men are in South Korea their first day, Man Buk is spying on people eating in Slubway, trying to figure out where Suri lives. So yeah, Slubway, but olive chicken, yeah.
And I also really wanted some of that North Korean ajumma good kimchi because that looked really awesome when they were making it. So not gonna lie, fried chicken is not a go-to for me whatsoever. But again, there was something about the fried chicken in that show, and the beer and fried chicken combo. Really, like, I would just watch it being like, I really want to eat fried chicken, and I never, ever, ever eat fried chicken.
Yeah, I mean, I same. I really don't eat fried chicken, but I can get it easily if I want to. But they made it look just stinking delicious.
Yeah, it was no Ray Ref C chicken or whatever we would do to Kentucky fried chicken.
Oh my God.
Oh gosh.
Oh my God.
Please don't sue us.
We don't have sponsors, but we also don't want to be sued by people who we're like unsponsoring. Yeah, fried chicken would have been my top choice, but because we can't all say fried chicken, even though we all want the fried chicken and beer, I wanted all their snacks with the sauna, particularly the hard-boiled eggs, the sauna eggs that were, soy sauce infused eggs.
I've been making those actually, and they are delightful.
I have to do
Wait,
that.
what are you making?
Just hard boiling eggs and like marinating them in like double fermented soy sauce and eating them like after 24 hours. It's an amazing snack.
What?
Yeah, it's like umami heaven.
I need to do that.
That's why when they're eating the eggs, they're brown, even when they're peeled, because those are sauna eggs.
I didn't realize that. Oh man, I love hard-boiled eggs. Like I can eat like a lot. Like
yeah, I can pack away a hard-boiled egg or two, is what you're saying.
No, did you ever see Cool Hand Luke where he's like, I could eat 50 eggs? Sorry, that's like a family thing. I grew up watching Cool Hand Luke and with Paul Newman where he's like, I could eat 50 eggs.
I was going to say, it sounds like Gaston.
Yeah, he's in the prison. I mean, it's a black and white movie. He's in a prison. They dares to eat 50 eggs. Anyway, that's what I was thinking of. But yeah, I'm gonna. I want that recipe or whatever. I'll look it up. I'm gonna make my eggs.
It's really easy and it's really good. Just remember to peel the egg after you boil it because it's not going to permeate the shell.
Okay. I mean, we're probably going to have a whole episode coming up on
food,
the Korean product placements because it's amazing. I mean, I just love how they drink from the bottle so the label is really clear and then like they like love it. It's so tasty.
Yeah, I find it all really endearing. So
me too. I love it.
Well, what K-drama do you have on deck next to watch? So what is something that you are looking forward to watching, like, in the next couple of weeks?
I actually, because I'm in between dramas, I took a break for Bridgerton and now I'm back to dramas. I just started today Hotel Del Luna, the first episode, because I had been reading about it, and it is about a hotel for souls on their way to the afterlife. And it is run by the female lead. She runs the Hotel Del Luna and has been for generations. So I don't quite know her situation. She seems kind of like a goblin because she's not dead, but she's also not fully part of the living. And she runs this hotel. And because of an accidental trespass by the hero's father, when the hero was a kid, the father is a petty thief and he falls down a flight of concrete steps outside and wanders around and finds his hotel, not knowing that he's laying on the pavement dying, and somehow makes it into the hotel while he's not already dead. And you're not supposed to be able to do that. And the hotel manager, the female lead, finds him and he begs her to let him go. And she says, I will let you live if you promise me that in 20 years you will give your son to me and he will come manage my hotel. And so that is how the hero and the heroine meet. Is the son is grown up and he's like a hotelier, and he's been getting these birthday gifts every year reminding him that he has to go to the Hotel de Luna when he's whatever age, 29, 30 or whatever. He doesn't really believe it. His father keeps telling him it's true. And long story short is it's true. And he has to go work at this hotel because it was a bargain made with whatever kind of being she is. That's all episode 1, basically. So
I'm in the middle, well, kind of towards the beginning of Touch Your Heart, which Leah talked about that last episode. But basically, there's an actress who has kind of fallen out of favor with the public, and she really wants to land a lawyer role. And so the studio decides to send her to work for a lawyer for 3 months so that she can study. And of course, the hero is this lawyer. And I really love him because he's very like left-brained, isn't great with social cues. So he reminds me a lot of my husband and me because I'm very right-brained and flighty and all of that. And that's kind of her. And then he's, this like logical whatever. So I'm really enjoying the banter, and the heroine is honestly just stinking adorable. And it's very funny. And every episode just kind of gives me like warm fuzzies, which I love. So I'm not sure. I think next I want to do maybe some sort of paranormal. So I might try Tale of the Nine Tails.
So Megan and I are kind of tracking similar at the moment, in that I'm further down the track. I'm almost done with Touch Your Heart. I think the only reason I didn't finish it is because I did pull over to watch Bridgerton, which Smidgerton, I should say, so I don't get into trouble when I say it was okay, but it wasn't a K-drama.
Agreed. So, Smidgerton was a smidge, not
Smidgerton.
Are you guys making fun of my sheets?
I'm not actually. And you should say Sheets is a restaurant. We're not actually making fun of like your bed sheets, because if you don't live in Pennsylvania, I don't think
it's actually like a gas station.
Okay, well, I don't know if anyone knows about. Yeah, if you're listening to this in Oregon right now, they might be like, "What's wrong with Megan's Sheets?"
It's just funny because everything at Sheets is like, it starts with an SH. So you get like schmuffins and schmegels, and that's just the way it is. So when she said Smidgerton, it made me
Smidgerton. And I also did do, like, I circled back. I had this like goblin angst knowing that Megan was watching it. So I went back and watched the behind the scenes finally. I'd been saving that. Also delightful. But I do think, yeah, I'm kind of feeling Tale of the Nine Tails next too. You know, Lee Dong-wook is a joy to me to watch, and I think he's really fun, and hits me weird because I think he's like objectively a beautiful, like ethereal being, but I feel like he just is also hits me in this like really nice dorky weird spot. So I'm sure that, you know, in real life I'm sure he's wonderful, but like with the characters he plays, he does like that awkward dorkiness really well. And so I'm kind of curious to see how that goes. And then Kim Bum, who was in Boys Over Flowers as one of the ensemble characters, I had mixed feelings about, but I liked him as an actor. And so I'm kind of curious to see him, because I guess he's kind of like the bratty brother in the show. So I always love a bratty brother. I'm a Loki fan. So yeah, I think Tale of the Nine Tails.
Tale of the Nine-Tailed.
Tale of the Nine-Tailed. Sorry, Tale of the Nine-Tailed instead of
I'm
the tails flopping many tails. It's like Mr. Tickler in the Nine Tails.
Stop it. Don't bring Mr. Tickler into this.
Can we get Mr. Tickler just to sponsor us moving forward?
I am never gonna look at my toothbrush the same.
It's Mr. Tickler. Yeah, Lee Dong-wook, he's art. I mean, in every scene, it's interesting because I know I bring up K-pop and they're like, oh my God, Megan, but K-pop's really interesting because in a K-pop group, there's always different, specialties. And sometimes there are certain members who they're literally they can sing and dance too, but they're really there for the visual. Visuals means it's code for like, they're freaking beautiful. Okay. There's always like some really beautiful men and women that are considered the visuals of the group. And I just feel like Lee Dong-wook is like the visual in whatever show he's in. He's just beauty. I'm kind of obsessed with him. So, and I really do like the characters he plays that I've seen so far. So yes, let's go all in with the Fox shifter next.
Okay, I'm really looking forward to that. And then to tease the next show, we are going to be talking a little bit, as we're discussing, how we want like our different shows to look. We do have definitely more deep dives coming, but we thought we would just pull over and have an episode that kind of addressed the K-drama fandom from appreciation, but also looking at as like, being aware of like appropriation as well, especially being that, we're three white ladies from America. Yeah. So for the next show, we will be having a conversation just about fandom appreciation and how we're trying to do good work to separate that appreciation from actual all out cultural appropriation, which is icky and something we certainly don't want to be doing.
I think that wraps it up. So should we say it, everybody?
Annyeong.
Kamsahamnida. Thank you for listening to Afternoona Delight. Make sure to subscribe for more great K-romance conversation. And be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Afternoona Delight Podcast for more information on our podcast, behind-the-scenes photos, and, of course, pics of our favorite oppas and anis. Annyeong!